But at the end of those few seconds, out of nowhere, as I was looking at him, I could see the tears starting to well up in his eyes. I was just horrified and I started crying and I asked him to please tell me what happened. I leapt at him, putting my arms around him, my head in his chest. He put one arm around me and one hand on my head and just cradling me. It was a loving embrace that I had come to know as part of our marriage. But it had never happened under this type of circumstance. This had never happened before. He told me he would tell me under one condition. It was the first and last time it would ever be discussed and I was not to disclose any of it to anyone. No matter what. I never disclose anything to anyone, but as he says sometimes with a smirk, sometimes you have to put the disclaimer out there so there are no misunderstandings. He told me his first time was when he was 8 years old during the summer between 3rd and 4th grade by an 18-years-old high school girl who was well known and was a cheerleader. He was taken advantage of. I was completely stunned. I was frozen. I didn't know what to say. Because of his physique, one of my first thoughts, after I collected myself, was how could any girl do that to you? You would just toss them off of you like a paper towel. But as he explained it to me, it became much easier to understand what had happened. He gave me a few details. I was mortified. He spent the night at a friend's house. The friend's older sister was there with several of her friends. The parents were gone and the older girls were smoking and drinking. It was the first time he had tried it too. This girl had tricked him, little by little over the course of the evening, to get him high and drunk, then alone and into a compromising position. Being his age, he eventually lost control of his body. The cheerleader put her legs under and around his legs, holding his arms down with her weight on him. By then, it was too late. He couldn't get away. He said he really tried, but after a few seconds, he realized that he couldn't get her off of him. He was trapped. So, he let her do what she was going to do and then it was over. He said the whole event might have lasted 2 to 3 minutes. I was stunned. I could not believe what I was hearing. I started thinking about our son, who was a junior in high school, and what I would do if this had happened to him. But it was what happened afterward, what she threatened to tell other people, that's what really made me mad. 3 years later, when my husband went into 9th grade, he was a sports star, well known and well liked at school. But that woman would come back for football homecoming and a few other sports and school events during my husband's freshman year. He said it seemed like she was always right there. After his freshman year, he never saw her again. I wanted this woman's name. I wanted to find her and confront her. He laughed and told me he can't even remember her name. Of course, I didn't believe him. We had been to several of his reunions and I asked if she had been there. He said no. She was 7 grades above him. I asked if he had tried to find her on social media. He said no. I asked a few other questions but he just laughed and shook his head and told me not to worry about it. It was a long time ago. It's done and over with, and in the scheme of life, it was nothing. It had no effect on family, career or anything else. The whole conversation took about 5 minutes. And just like that, the subject was over. We walked into the other room and it was like nothing had ever happened. But, I couldn't stop thinking about it. A few days later, I approached him in private, put my hand on his chest in a loving motherly way and told him I was sorry and that he should talk to someone about it. He smiled and hugged me the way I like to be hugged, such a loving and comforting hug, a feeling of being completely and totally safe. I love those hugs. Then he reminded me of the one condition that I had agreed to and that the subject was dead, never to be brought up again. Just as I thought the hug was over, I felt a deep breath as his chest expanded, then I actually could hear the exhale. For a split second, I could tell that hug was for him as much as it was for me. We let go of each other. He looked at me, caressed my head and kissed me gently on the forehead and said, "Thank you." And that was it. The subject has never been discussed again. Up until that point, I didn't think I could love this man any more than I had. Boy, was I wrong.